Welcome, agents, to a very special presentation. I'm Jared Creasy, your host, community manager here with Tripwire Interactive and Tripwire Presents, and I'm joined by my very special guest, Phil of the Sweet Bandits. Phil, we've got a lot to talk about today, don't we? A lot of exciting things to not just talk about even, but also show.
Absolutely. So today we are going in depth with Operation Overhaul. This is a absolutely massive update. It's the biggest one we've ever done, basically, for Deceive Inc. And we're going to have a little special program where we go through all the biggest items to really give you a deep dive into what we're thinking, what we're working on, and what you can expect to in the game with the update.
So that includes the combat overhaul, which includes, at the very least, animation changes, recoil changes, the introduction of a new item, the healing vials, changes to hit markers and aim punch, controller improvements. We have map updates. We have new ways that the infiltration phase will play out. We have guards and heat that have received improvements. And we have the introduction of AI agents. So there's a lot on the menu here, and this is only really scratching the surface of kind of the big pieces that players are going to notice right away. Phil, what's kind of the thing you're most excited to bring forth today?
I'll say maps have a very special place to my heart. I'm a level designer by profession, so I'm really excited to dig into what we've done with the maps. I think there's big changes in every single map, but the biggest one is really Diamond Spire, and I want to hype it up a little bit because I'm very proud of what was achieved with it. I think players will be very excited with the new ways they can interact in these maps and the new flank routes that we added in there.
All right. Well, I'm excited to show it off, but we're going to be kicking things off here by going a little bit deeper into the combat overhaul. So Phil, starting with the combat overhaul, we've got so much going on here, from new weapon animations, recoil adjustments. We talked briefly about the brand new item, the healing vial, and improved controller input, just to name a few things. Can you tell us more about all of this? Just all of this.
Yeah, that's quite a lot. So let's start with the beginnings. I think the big intent behind the overall kind of combat overall itself is really to make it more accessible, more fun, and really kind of reduce the elements that would make it more difficult to get into for new players. To start off with, I think the animations is one of the big things that players will notice right away. Before, what we used to do is that base weapons in the game, they had all their specific animation. They looked really good. They were really cool. And then the weapon mods that we added on later on as we worked on the project, a lot of those would share animation with the base one. And these animation would not fit perfectly with the fire rate, the reload time they had. And that's really added up to feeling kind of weird when you would play with them. For example, Chavez Duke, it's a big, slow-firing weapon, and so it would be kind of scaling down the base weapon animation, and you really feel that it's slowed down. It feels artificial. It does not feel great. So that's something we wanted to go. We went back and kind of tweaked animation over the entire cast of the entire game, all the arsenal, to make sure that they feel great, that the animation fits what we want them to communicate from kind of a gameplay feel. So I think just that is going to make a huge difference for the overall kind of fluid feel of combat. And then on top of that, with these animation, you have the other part of the equation, which is the recoil changes. And now recoil is something we've had quite a bit of feedback on from the community. And we've been kind of listening for that feedback and looking at what can we do to really reduce recoil in the game, but making it in a way that does not make the game a game where you can just laser someone from across the map and you die and you don't understand what happens. So what we did is we went around and smoothed out the recoil curves for the entire weapons. So every single weapon in the game, once again, we went in there, we tweaked stuff. So every weapon has changed. If your question is, did my character change? The answer is probably yes, as we went in there. And everything is smoother, easier to get a grip with. And what we did over that, for example, for full auto weapon, we now have more pronounced damage drop-off. So if you shoot people from farther away, faster firing weapons, they're going to lose damage over shorter distance. and stronger kind of one-shot, slower firing weapon, they are going to keep more damage over distance. So that's really kind of redefining these damage fall off distance for the entire cast, making them more pronounced. That's how we keep in check weapons having much less recoil. And all that together really results in an experience that I feel is more accessible to new player, but also feels better for all players that just play the game and want to get into the combat elements of the UI.
That sounds awesome. And how do the new healing vials play into all of that?
That's a good question. So the healing vials, the role we want with them is really to make the game more dynamic, right? One thing that happens with the current way that healing is working in DI is that you can either go and take social battery as a field upgrade and heal yourself anywhere with kind of the social interacts. Otherwise, you are pretty much at the mercy of finding foods in the map, of heading into restrooms to kind of interact with healing stations. You can get camped at these healing stations, so it can make stuff difficult to deal with. With the vials, you now have dispenser in every single staff room in the game. So if you go into one of these staff rooms, you can spend 3 intel and get a healing vial from that. You can store a max of 3 on you at all time. And what's great with healing vials is that it's healing on the go. You're not healing yourself immediately. You can use that anytime within you bindable input that you'll be able to choose for yourself. And then when you're in danger, you can actually hold that button and kind of use that healing vial and gain 20 health on the go anytime. Of course, if you're getting shot, if you are getting bounced off with a bounce mat, pretty much anything that's going to interrupt your healing, so other players can react to that and prevent you from healing in the middle of a fight. It still takes 3 seconds all in all to heal yourself, so it's not easy to pull it in the middle of a fight. You really want to break away, turn the corner, heal yourself, and then you can go back into the action, maybe back your team in a team match. I feel it really makes the game more dynamic. It gives you more option, and it gives you more option on where to spend your intel. Do I stack up on these healing consumable before going into the vault? It really opens up, I think, much more decision-making to the game.
I truly feel that it is one of the bigger additions that players were going to have to wrap their minds about how best to effectively make use of it, because it is something that hasn't been part of the core game loop until now. And it definitely is one of those things where you might have to remind yourself, hey, I have this new resource. I can break away. I can go hide somewhere that's a little bit less obvious, top myself back off, and get back into the mission and go for the win.
Yeah, and I think another interesting element is that, of course, spending 3 intel at the restrooms to heal yourself, you get a full heal for 3 intel. These ones, it costs 3 intel for 20 HP, basically, so it's less efficient. So there's still a reason to go to these restrooms. But if you are in danger, you feel like, oh, okay, you're low on health, it's maybe too risky to head to the restroom. Now you can go to a staff room that's maybe safer, farther away from the action, kind of slowly make yourself, get your health back up and be able to kind of survive from the match. I think it really opens up also kind of stealthier gameplay. If you want to kind of run away from fights and try to survive, I think it really enables that kind of play style even more.
So beyond running away, we talked about, how we've changed how, recoil's working. So there's a chance that there might be a lot more shots on target from a lot of players, but how do we help other players know that? How do we improve that situation, that part of the equation?
Yeah, so making shooting more fun, more intuitive is one thing. Making getting shot more clear and more and less unpleasant is another one, and that's also been a big focus. So, of course, getting shot is never fun, right? It's not a great experience, but it's even worse when it's confusing. And I think that's one thing that we really wanted to tone down. A big feedback that we received, and that you'll see with the video, is that aim punch, or the movement of the camera when you get shot, was very intense in the game. So you could get into a fight, get shot at, and your camera would kind of jitter quite a bit. What that did in practice, the intent was to make it very clear from which direction you're getting shot. So by having kind of that bump on the camera. But what would really happen is that players would get frustrated because it throws off their aim, right? You're trying to aim at that person, they are shooting at you, and you get your reticle kind of jittering all around. So that's one thing we looked at. We have smoothed out aim punch across the board quite a bit. It's much less than it used to. You'll see it in the video. Like, it used to be very intense. It's much, much less on all direction. But we went a bit further on. And what we did is that if you are getting shot from the front, like someone is in front of you and shooting you, it's half of the value of getting shot behind you or on the side. So it's even less camera movement. And the idea is, if you are getting shot from the front, you are probably looking at the person shooting you. You need less kind of camera feedback to help you understand from where that is coming. So we can tone that down quite a bit and make sure that your aim stays on target, that it's easier to keep tracking your target. So that was a big part of it, kind of the frustration that would be born from aim punch. And the other part of that is the hit markers. So it's good. You're getting shot. It's less frustrating. You don't lose your aim. Now, how can you better understand from where you've been shot at, right? The nature of deceiving makes it that you could be shot from a bunch of directions and it could be a total surprise. We need to make that feedback better. So what we did is that we changed the markers when you get some damage. They used to be not very directional. You would get kind of that half circle in your screen that is red. It would give you kind of some idea of the direction, but it was not very precise. Which changes to something that is giving a much more precise idea. It's much thinner, so it gives you kind of that very precise direction from where you've been shot. And on top of that, we've added a feedback to give you an idea of how much damage you're receiving. So you have kind of that line that's bigger or smaller, depending on the amount of damage that you're receiving. So you can have an idea, this was a pretty big shot from that direction. Maybe that should be where I focus my attention, compared to receiving some small shot that makes the line kind of much smaller. So all this together, we feel is going to be getting shot at less jarring, throw off your game plan much less, but also give you more information to know, okay, I'm getting shot from that direction. What can I do? What is my best recourse? And I think that's going to make fights feel better as a victim of another player.
I do agree. And the last kind of major point we want to cover here is for all of our controller-based agents out there, because we're making some pretty big improvements on that front, have we not?
Yes, definitely. So there's a lot of fixes, tweaks to the controller experience. I think the biggest thing that is going to be noticed by a controller user is how we changed aim assist. So it's basically being reworked almost entirely from the ground up. And what does it change from a player perspective? You can have a look at how we are kind of handling that in the background from that video, but we have now much more kind of a precise attach point for what is considered an enemy and what is going to be assisted at. So before we had kind of those three bones. It was the head, top of the torso, kind of lower torso, legs, arms. They were not considered part of the character for aim assist. So you would not get kind of that stickiness at the edge of a character, or kind of that magnetism that helps you kind of really land that. So that's one part that really makes it much more precise, and it really helps you kind of aim where you want to aim with the controller. But on top of that, we have some changes to how we handle aim assist with camera movement, so that when you're kind of turning fast and trying to get on target, it has a smoother kind of movement and acquisition. And we also made changes to what we consider a important aim assist target. So what we did is that we have now the notion of a hostile target versus a non-hostile target. So you won't stick to every single civilian NPC that goes in your face if you have a hostile spy in front of you that is shooting at you. Same things for guards that are aggro, they are considered hostile. So aim assist is going to focus on that instead of civilian that could run in front of you, which is something that happens quite a bit in a DI fight that could be happening. So I think all of this together really helps to make the aim assist more useful. And I'm going also to stress that the recoil changes are very beneficial for a controller user. I think recoil is even harder to control on a controller. So smoothing that out combined with these changes is making the controller experience much more accessible than it used to be.
So with all these things combined, what stands out to you for maybe the new agent experience or even the returning agent experience as being the thing that's going to impact them the most initially?
I think recoil is really a big thing. I think recoil was very strong previously. It could be unwieldy. It made a bunch of weapons. I think people are going to be surprised by some weapon, like just having these recoil changes make you see them in a whole new light. Some weapon that could have been seen as they are not very strong or not very good, just because the recoil was so present, are going to find a new lease on life because they're so fun and interesting to use right now. So I think just making the arsenal more accessible and be able to use, like, you pick up that weapon, it interests you, and you're able to play with it, and you don't have kind of that hurdle to jump through of fighting that recoil that could be very strong. I think that's really something that is going to open up the game and open up builds to kind of use more weapons that players would normally do currently on live.
Phil, so let's talk missions. We all know, you mentioned earlier, your favorite that has been updated. Maybe not your favorite, but the one you're most proud of. Well, I'll clarify.
Yeah, I'm playing
Diamond.
Yeah,
I know. You shouldn't play favorites. But we all know it's Diamond Spire now. Tell us more about all these changes. Like, what was the intent behind them? What's the goal? What all has been done to all these levels?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, as people might have noticed, if they played since the Holiday Rumble event, we've started dabbling in map reworks back then with the Silver Reef Vault rework, and it's been pretty successful. We were very happy with the changes we made in there, and the goal with it were pretty simple. We wanted a better flow. We wanted players to have more options and to be able to flank people better, kind of surprise other players, be able to have chases that are interesting by kind of losing someone that's following them. I think those things are very core to what makes DI fun. So that's something we wanted more of in the maps. So if we go into how we approached it on this update, let's say we took these intents and multiplied them by like 10, 20, or 50 or something like that. We went all out to add a lot of changes to every single operation. I'll go kind of in detail a little bit into the different changes and how they're going to impact stuff. But really, if you want to have kind of a overarching goal for everything, it's really all about flow, player possibility, being able to dodge other players, and just having more option overall. Another big focus, and that's where I think Diamond Spire benefits a lot from it, is making sure that every zone in the map, in the game, where you spawn, where you can be, is a good lootable zone that you can actually loot around, be able to progress to a staff room, which we added a bunch of those in the different maps, and then have a restroom not too far away from you if you get into a fight, and be able to progress then to a blue room, a pulper room, and potentially find a vault terminal or have to go somewhere else. I think that's one thing that we really learned about the game, is that a big contributor to having early game fights is that you spawn somewhere where there's not enough stuff to do around you, so you move to somewhere else, and then you really up the chances of falling onto a spy early into a match. So that's really something we wanted to do to kind of extend the kind of stuff you can do in there. If we go into the specific maps, I know that we have kind of Diamond Spire running right now, so I can talk about it a little more. As you can see, we added some scaffoldings in Diamond Spire that allows you to kind of, rooms that used to be dead end with no exit, you can now open a window to kind of a in construction site and there, walk through the scaffoldings and get back in from another window at another floor. That's really interesting because NPCs, as you can imagine, they will not go out there and walk on scaffoldings and just walk on there. So it's a super suspicious move, but it's still something you can use to get out of a tough spot. Someone pushes you in the office. Currently, you can't do anything about it. You have to fight and you can't get out. Now you'll be able to kind of get out from one of those windows, get back in from somewhere else. And as you look in there, that's also a very good example of added flow, I would say. That zone would kind of used to be a dead end if you go in there, and now there's a open door that goes into the vault area. So if you get out of the vault, you also have more options. For the vault, there's a lot of changes. We added restrooms. I think Diamond Spire was one of the map where it was the hardest to heal yourself. A single restroom at the center makes it really hard. We added 2 new restrooms. They are at the center and they allow you to transition from the 3 main corridors. So give you a lot of option into how you want to move during fights. For Friggin' Shore, I think it's a smaller update for this map. I mean, Diamond Spire and Silver Reef have huge changes. for friggin' sure, we really went with giving more personality to different buildings, making sure that they are easier as landmark to recognize. So you'll have the different stands with unique items in there, the different shops looking more unique to really help new players kind of find their way and have better callouts in matches. And Sonic Clips that you see over here, we have a new staff room in the main hall. That's really part of the initiative I was talking about, making sure that every single zone is a fully fledged lootable zone. So you now have that room where you can go in there, loot, and flank other teams in the main hall, not being stuck in that kind of terminal section of it. So that's kind of the overall approach. I did not go into every single one of these. There is a new shortcut in Diamond Spire that you'll be able to use to do some cheeky flanks. I won't spoil where it is, but you should probably look around the rooftop section. And the rooftop itself is completely different. It now has a restroom to heal, more places to go, in a all new staff room up there as a snack bar with Yati juices.
If I don't know if the world needs more Yachty and Yachty merchandise, paraphernalia, items. These are all things.
Yeah, I don't think the world needs it, but I feel they're gonna get it either way. So that's how it is with him.
Something I'm super excited for players to get their hands on is the changes to the infiltration phase and the introduction of the VIP card printers. Now, this is something brand new, and it's actually got a kind of key ingredient to kind of slow down the phase. Now, Phil, what is that ingredient?
Yeah, so one thing that we've heard quite a bit, people really like the first phase of the match, the insertion phase. They like looking around for stuff, trying to find the vault terminals. They feel like they have more opportunities to kind of be sneaky, look around, try to look for other spies, get into some fights, and then get out. And I think that people felt that they kind of lost that as they get into the vault, because people got really good at the game and they would kind of go in a speedrun mode to run into the objective room and open it, as they already have a orange key card or they have 10 intel and they are just ready to gun for it. What we wanted to do is add a new reason to look inside the vault areas, walk around them, really be able to look inside of them. I think they've had a lot of effort put into them, but there was not a lot of reasons to kind of walk around and look in there. So what we wanted to do is add a new reason to kind of slow the game, give you something to look for before you get to that briefcase and to the extraction phase. And that new thing is, like you've said, the VIP card printer. I just want to make it very clear, there is no longer any VIP card in the match. You cannot get one before the vault is open. That is a thing of the past. Now, when the vault is open, you get in there, and what you want to find is one of these printers. There's a few of them inside the vault. You can spawn at different locations. They're not going to be at a set place every single match. You'll have to kind of look around and find one. And once you do, you have to spend 10 intel to kind of hack it. And then it's going to start printing you a VIP key card to get access to that objective room. You can no longer open the VIP door with 10 intel. You really need that card. So you have to find that printer and interact with it. And I think really the magic from those comes from just the fact that you need to kind of hold a position with something that does some noise and has some visual feedback. And I think that's really fun in the context of DI. You could, for example, start your print and then go into social interact nearby, kind of pretend you're just a technician going into on their desk near there. You can play as a guard and kind of just stay a bit farther away and try to look for it. If you're an ace player, that gives you a reason to stand back and look with your scope, wait maybe as a bait for someone to go and try and take your own key card once it's done printing. Because that's the other part of it that's really fun, I think, is that once the printing is done, you need to get the key card. You don't have it already. You need to go and loot it. So if you start that printing, it takes 30 seconds and you decide to loot around and go a bit farther away, someone could just walk in there, take that key card away from you when you're locked looking, and go straight for the objective. So it really adds, I think, a lot of new layers that feeds into what is fun about DI, kind of that deception element, that angle of looking for stuff and trying to kind of lurk around the areas, and added that to the vault, which was really lacking that element, I believe, before. And of course, with the map changes, that's also part of some of the changes we made to the vault areas, adding more flow and stuff that really improve the flow of these areas so that you look for these stuff and it feels good and it's a fun new part of the gameplay.
As I said at the beginning, I can't wait for players to get their hands on it, especially as a Larcene player. I'm just here to yank things from you after you've printed them, hopefully without you ever noticing. Because not only will you be lurking, I'll be looking for you to take it and then steal it from you. Another one of the team's goals was to make the guard and heat system more impactful but also more predictable. What have you all done to kind of reach this goal?
Yeah, we've made quite a bit of changes to them. The overarching goal, like you said, it was really, we wanted guards to be less annoying when you were having a PvP fight with someone else and that you're playing the game like perfectly, you have no heat level, you haven't shot anyone that you shouldn't have, and then you're having that PvP fight, you have guards crashing that fight. That does not feel good. So we wanted that situation to be much less frustrating. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we wanted players that have heat level 3, they shoot every single NPC to make a guess. We wanted to be in more trouble if they do that with the guards. So the way we approach that is making sure that guard behavior scales with heat. And you can see a little bit from that video, but if you blow your cover and you have absolutely no heat, guards are not going to shoot at you right away. They're going to kind of run after you and try to punch you into submission, but they're not going to open fire. Once that happens, they're actually going to grow heat passively over time. So if you stay in their face, you're still going to gain some heat over time as they look at you. And then once you hit that heat level 1, they're going to start shooting. They're going to whip out their gun, and then they are back into good old DI guard mode that wants to shoot you down. And we have tweaked that behavior to kind of scale with the heat level. So if you get to heat level 2, they're going to be even more aggressive. And heat level 3, now you're in big trouble at that point, right? To kind of alleviate a little bit the frustration side of things, we have also tweaked how we give heat a little bit. So we've made a bigger buffer. If you've hit a spy recently during a fight, for example, you have 0 heat level, you are fighting against another spy, you hit them, and then by accident, you shoot an NPC that goes in front of you. We already had a small buffer to kind of not give you heat if that happened, but it was a very tight one. We made that bigger. We never wanted heat to be kind of a accuracy check, like you've missed a single shot in the crowd. Sucks to be you, you get a heat level. That was never the intent. So we've made that a bit more lenient on that side. So really the idea is, if you are playing the game as kind of a clean operator, you're not getting heat levels, you're taking your PvP fights, making good guesses, you know this is a spy and you're taking that fight, guards are not going to be as much of a nuisance for you. By a big shot, it's either actually much less of a nuisance. But if you're starting shooting NPCs and taking guess, you're going to feel the heat. They will be much more relentless than they used to be, and you really want to get back into cover and vent that heat off before getting into more trouble.
And just to be clear with our players, like this is the start to even more changes that are becoming later in the Operation Overhaul phase to make stealth and trick plays more viable?
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the big subjects that we are looking into for kind of further phases of Operation Overhaul is really digging a bit more into the PvE aspect of the game, how the ways you can use that to kind of trick other players, how it interacts with the overall game flow, making it more interesting by itself, making that aspect of the game a bit like we did with the guard, more predictable, but more interesting, and having kind of a new layer of challenge that's going to be engaging for players to get into. We're excited to kind of talk a bit more about what that's going to be in the future. That's not part of this part of the Operation Overhaul. We wanted to really focus on the core aspects of the game to start these changes, and then we'll look at you guys' feedback, what you really like about this update, what you want us to focus more on, and we'll have more to say on the subject of further PvE enhancements in the future.
So, last but not least, to help improve the new agent experience, AI agents are entering the field and joining missions. Phil, how is that exactly going to work for players?
Yeah, so AI agents is something that we've had a lot of demand for. Players wanted to have a way to kind of own their skills in a less risky environment to start understanding the game. The way this is going to work in this iteration of the game, as you start playing the game, the beginner queue of the AI, have your first few matches, get into the gist of it, you'll have a bit more bots in your matches that are going to fill out your lobbies. So you'll still play with some of the new players in that beginner queue, but you'll have a variety of bots also in there. And the way they've been designed is is really to be a good way to learn the game. They are not absolutely cracked in combat, but they will still teach you what is sus and what is not. So if you jump in front of them, for example, they might open fire. If you loot something in the open right in front of them, that ammo, they might try to take a shot at you. They'll get into fights between each other. They have different profiles. Some are more low profile and will stay stealthy for longer during the match. Some are a bit more aggressive and kind of mimic that player behavior early on in the match, getting into battles. And they will also kind of chase you around. If you have the briefcase, they'll try to look for you at where you leave your ping. So they have this kind of wide range of behaviors that give you a good idea of learning the basics of the game. So like I've said, they are present in beginner queue. You will also be able to fill your private lobbies with AI. That was a big request we had. So you will be able to do that. For example, you only have 2 friends to get the DI matches going. You can fill the rest of the lobby with bots to add a bit of spice to them. I really want to stress out that they have been designed to be kind of good tool for beginners. We will continue iterating on bot behavior to be able to make maybe future bots that have a more advanced kind of behavior tool set that you'll be able to put in your private lobbies and kind of challenge yourself with them. So that's something that you can look forward to in the future.
So you're saying we're going to be looking forward to player feedback on these?
Absolutely. And one last thing I can say with private lobbies, that's kind of the same gist. You'll also be able to go into sandbox mode and be able to play in private lobbies with XP entirely turned off, but every single unlock in the game available from you for the start. So, for example, you're a new player, you want to try weapons that you don't have yet with some bots, so you can jump in there with your friends that know everything about the game. They can show you stuff and you can try everything out in a less risky environment. So that's also a fun part of the private lobbies edition on that front.
Well, I am, for one, looking forward to that because there are several agents out there, especially who hang out in the Deceive Inc. Discord, that like to hunt me down. So I need to improve my skills with these AI agents.
I'm definitely part of that club, to be honest.
You are. Thank you once again, agents, for joining us today, and a big thank you to Phil for going through all these major parts of Operation Overhaul, the Phase 1 even. I guess this is our time to say goodbye.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Super excited to get your feedback on everything we've talked about today. It's been a very huge undertaking for the team. I think everyone really wants to see what you're going to think about this. And we just want to get it into players' hand at this point. So hopefully you'll really enjoy it. And we are looking at what you'll think of it in the coming weeks.
And speaking about getting into players' hands, at the start of this transmission, we did note that it was coming later this month. I guess now might be the right time to say it's dropping February 29th. And along with this update is a free weekend across Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox. So agents, be sure to grab a friend, grab an enemy, and tell everybody you know. Now is the best time to head into the world of Deceive Inc.
It's spying time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.